Hello, everyone. In my today's lecture, we are going to learn about feminist theories. Um, like I said in my previous lecture, that feminist theories is one of the few topics that we are left with in this semester. In today's lecture, we'll talk about feminist theories, and we may continue with some more discussion of feminist theories in my next class. After that, we will talk very briefly about theories of persuasion. We may spend a couple of classes in the discussion of persuasion theories, and then we will be done with our syllabus. So potentially, this is our second last topic for this semester for the course of MCOM 409. Uh, let's discuss, before we start discussing feminist theories, let us very briefly discuss what is the meaning of feminism. I believe we all have a sort of vague understanding, maybe not vague, even clear understanding of what feminism is, we may have trouble putting it into words, but we all actually know that what feminism is. Whenever the idea of feminism comes in my mind, to me, it is actually a theory or a school of thought or a paradigm or a way of thinking where people talk about equality of women. So the description that I have on this screen, this is dictionary definition. This is the definition that I got from the dictionary, and it says that the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. This is the same meaning that I was discussing earlier, that talking about the equality of women and talking about the equality of women's rights, equality of on the basis of equality of sexes is what we call feminism. However, in our contemporary context, there are many scholars. Whenever they talk about the scholarship on feminism, they talk about the equality of all genders. And by all genders, I mean both males and females, as well as transgender or bisexual people. So this is, let's discuss about the history of feminism. This may spark a question in your mind that what about, I mean, we know that in Pakistan we have cases where women in many parts of the country, or even in different cultures, they are oppressed or they are subjugated. However, it seems, or we have this vague idea in the mind, that feminism is an idea that is maybe practiced in West, or maybe West actually, in West, scholars and intellectuals, they uphold and support ideas of feminism as compared to Pakistan. However, when we look at the history, we will come to know that the history of feminism started with American Revolution and especially French Revolution. This means women did not enjoy equal rights or the status of equality in civilized parts of the world historically. Historically, women did not always enjoy equal rights. I invite you to search up Laura Bassi. The spellings of her name are Laura, Bassi, Basi. Laura Bassi was the first educated woman in Europe, the first woman who actually received higher education. And they also award a scholarship on yearly basis or maybe on term basis to support female education. So similarly in history, in Europe, in USA, in many civilized parts of the world, women did not have rights to vote. Women did not have right to education, right to inherit property, or right for higher education. However, things gradually changed, and they especially changed after French and American Revolution. There was a strong wave of feminism in 1960s, and then how feminism came in scholarship. In other words, I'm talking about the idea how feminism came in academia. Uh, academics, they started generating scholarship on feminism in 1980s. Or maybe late 1980s. And I also must say that feminism is a kind of academic work, or feminism is a kind of academic scholarship which is still developing. And it is at an embryonic, it is still at formative stage. Majority scholars who are working, majority writers who are writing within the domain of feminism, within the theoretical frameworks of feminism, they are female writers. Feminism, again, it all started in academia in 1980s. In my next slides, we are going to talk about different types of feminism. The first type that you see on feminism is known as liberal feminism. Let's see what we have here on this slide. Liberal feminism criticizes the unequal and exploitative employment and representation of women in media and popular culture, and argues for remedial equal opportunities legislation to rectify this situation. So here I would like to emphasize the word representation. Liberal feminists, they have problem with unequal representation of women in media and in popular culture as well, which is also known as pop culture. Representation of women in media, we can find examples where women are underrepresented. By underrepresented, I mean they do not get equal amount of representation or enough representation. They have several issues and their issues are not highlighted by media. That is something we may call underrepresentation. Similarly, there is another term that you must learn, which is misrepresentation. And misrepresentation is when women are misrepresented, or false information or misleading information is given on media related to women. Women sometimes are also represented in stereotypical ways. Stereotypes, we have seen many content in on TV, in film, in even print media as well, where media, we see media sort of promoting this idea related to division of labor, that men are meant to be breadwinners and women are meant for chores. So this is this kind of mentality we see many media content in music industry, in drama industry, in film industry, where we see media kind of promoting this sort of ideology, which is all based on stereotypes. Liberal feminists, they believe they have trouble with misrepresentation, underrepresentation, or stereotypical representation of women, and with that they also talk about legislation. They think that there should be laws that should rectify, that should correct this situation. The next type that we are going to discuss related to types of feminism is radical feminism. So let me read the content first that we have on the screen, and then I'll explain it further. So radical feminists see the interests of men and women as being fundamentally and inevitably divergent. As the name suggests, radical is its dictionary meaning is something that goes toward extreme, and radical it also means something that demands thorough and complete change, and that is what they are asking. Radical feminists, they think that women and men, they are completely different. They are two different entities. You see, inevitably divergent. Inevitably means something that is not possible to avoid. And divergent means they go in different directions. They are different. And this regards patriarchy, or the control and repression of women by men, as the most crucial historical form of social division. And they actually demand for female separatism. As the name suggests, radical feminists, they are sort of kind of extreme in their thinking and in their demand as well. So radical feminists, they demand for complete separatism. They demand for complete separation of men and women. The next type that we are going to discuss is socialist feminism. Socialist feminism, again, let us read what we have on the screen, and from there I'll go for further explanation. Socialist feminists, they accept the stress on patriarchy, but patriarchy is dominance. Male dominance is patriarchy, where men are the ones who call the shots. They accept the stress on patriarchy, but tries to incorporate it into an analysis of capitalism, and argues for a radical transformation of the relations between the genders as an integral part of the emergence of a socialist society. As what we understand from the description here is that they are thinking about feminism on Marxist lines. Their views are aligned with Marxism. What they do is they kind of incorporate capitalism with patriarchy. They think that it's not only patriarchy that is problem, it is also capitalism. And men are the breadwinners, men have the capital, and that leads toward further women subjugation and women oppression. In other words, they have sort of materialistic vision for looking at unequal representation of women. They have sort of materialistic vision to look at inequalities that women have to face or women have to suffer from. This was all about different types of feminism. This is my last slide for today's lecture. And here I would like to ask you this question, that what do you think? Is feminist theory or research, is it critical? If you remember, we discussed 4 different types of theories, especially communication theories. There are normative types that mainly talk about the relationship between media and political system in a given area. There are post-positivist theories that are based on post-positivist research methods. They think that if we engage in scientific sort of research, we can get results that are measurable, that are verifiable, that are observable. And then comes cultural theory paradigm. They give more importance to culture. And last one was critical. Critical theorists or methodologists, they study inequalities, and they believe that the system is unjust, and they actually ask for reforms. In this way, I believe that feminist theory mostly, yes, it is critical, because it is talking about inequalities. It is talking about the idea that women, they do not get equal rights as compared to their male counterparts. So however, the angle can be cultural as well, especially the types that we just discussed. I'll go back to my previous slides. So these types, liberal, radical, and socialist, these boundaries have blurred, a sort of blurred in our contemporary context, because many scholars believe that women oppression, women subjugation, this mainly comes from social and cultural circumstances. It's the society that actually triggers women subjugation, or this happens because of cultural circumstances, or cultural settings. For this reason, they sort of bring cultural angle as well to the theories of feminism. However, for the most part, feminist theory is critical. Feminist research is action-oriented as well. If you recall my discussion on critical theory when I was explaining it in the beginning, or I have actually explained it several times during the semester, critical theorists ask for reforms, they demand reforms. And feminist research is action-oriented. It calls for action and seeks to advance feminist values. So in this sense, feminist theory is critical. And however, it depends if you want to give it a cultural angle as well. With this, I am finishing my today's lecture. However, I would like you all to come up with some examples, and you can consider it as a homework for our next class that we will have next week. So you can consider it as a homework that try to find some examples of underrepresentation or misrepresentation or stereotypes from a feminist standpoint. By feminist standpoint, I mean what examples you find in Pakistani media where you see women being underrepresented or misrepresented or being represented in a stereotypical way. And if you have any questions, feel free to write an email to me on firasatjabi@fccollege.edu.pk, or you can also ask me questions during our next class. Thank you and goodbye.